Welcome to the Relax into Love podcast, the place for spiritual, ambitious women to awaken to divine connection within themselves and their partner and manifest their most desired relationship with joy and ease. I'm Teal Elizabeth, your host, a spiritual love and relationship coach trained in the principles of feminine energy, NLP, and deep subconscious reprogramming. And through this podcast, it is my desire to inspire you on all things dating, relationships, and self-love. Now, on to the show.
Woman are you in today's modern world? Are you living mostly from your feminine energy or your masculine energy? What are the main differences between living from one or another, and what impact does this have on your relationships? Well, with today's guests, we're about to find out. I'm Talia from Rebel Love, your Let Love Begin Summit host, and today I'm speaking with Teal Elizabeth. Teal is a professional relationship coach and founder of Relax into Love coaching. She's been featured in Commitment Connection, Women on Top, Freedom Lifestyle, and SAS Magazine, and now travels the world as a digital nomad, coaching her tribe and seeing the world's wonders with her fiance. Welcome, Teal, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Talia. It's so wonderful to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in your coaching with women?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am so blessed to be able to have the opportunity to support women in opening their hearts to love. And really what I've noticed in my own experience of being on this earth is that in today's modern world, a lot of women really struggle to feel connected to their heart. And especially with this rise of women's empowerment, I've really seen this kind of backlash when it comes to relationships and dating, where we have gotten so caught up into our masculine energy as go-getter, ambitious women that we are, that we've really kind of disconnected from learning what it takes to be able to just relax into love. And so that's really my mission, is to help women to really learn what it takes to be able to relax into love and become the best versions of themselves, both for the world they live in and for the partners that they get to share life with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really love when I heard the name of your coaching business. I really resonated with Relax into Love, because I feel like when you relax, you can really be yourself. So for me, it's just like that really fitting name.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel the same.
Yeah. So you said that one of your goals with coaching is helping women to step into their feminine energy from a place of strength. So what does stepping into your feminine energy mean? And what are some of the connotations and main differences between masculine and feminine energy?
Oh yeah, this is such a great topic. And it's something that, oh my gosh, when I first awoke to the idea of feminine energy, it felt like a completely other side of my being. I really didn't even realize that I hadn't been tapped into it until I realized what it was. And for many women that I think are listening, you know, we are very driven, ambitious women. Like, we are go-getters, we're hustlers, we are proving ourselves to the world. We're saying, we don't need men anymore. Like, we've got this, right? It's a very empowering time to be alive as women. But what ends up happening is that when we get caught up into this energy, it comes off very much from the mind, and it comes off very much in this leaning forward masculine type of energy. And it's a really powerful energy in the work world, where we can set goals, we can put out strategies, we can like crush accomplishments. And I think a lot of women really gain a lot of like validation and confidence from that, being able to stand in that energy. But the challenge comes in is when we come into relationship with a man, that energy is like butting heads. And it basically shows men like, we got another man here in the relationship. And then women wonder why they can't keep really good quality men, or why they're not able to meet good men, or why the men they date are all a bunch of pansies or a bunch of just super emotional, you know, feminine men, right? And they get frustrated. And so really it's this idea of recognizing, and something that I really want to share and teach on, is that we as women do not have to sacrifice the incredible strength, powerful women that we are, but there's so much more that we get to actually tap into. And that is our more feminine side. And a lot of times when women think about femininity, or they hear that term femininity, like, I want to ask the listeners, like, what do you think about when you think of femininity? A lot of times the connotation is weak, right? Submissive, passive, emotional. I know for me, needy and clingy came up, and I was like, do not want to be that. Right? And so when we have that as the idea of what, you know, being a woman is, then there's part of ourselves that just wants to reject that completely and just like go into this comfort zone that has been conditioned into us of like, we don't need anyone and we're strong and we're fine. But what happens is, like I said, it's like we are showing up as a man in the relationship, and men of this day are like, I don't know what to do with women, right? Like, I don't know how to handle you. You're wearing the pants, but you look like a woman. And where do I fit into this relationship? And so a lot of women, a lot of relationships I've seen have just like completely fallen apart because women are disconnected from this whole other essence of their being. And really stepping into femininity from a place of strength gets to be an entirely different conversation. And the conversation we get to have today and helping support women with is recognizing that we get to redefine what it means to be a woman in this modern day. And that's what I want to say, is that being a woman in this modern day gets to be so much more than it was in the past. We are not 1950s housewives. We are not overly just like CEO masculine men. We get to have a really nice blend of both and really be able to relax into that feminine energy without giving out our power, and attract that more chivalrous, romantic, manly type of energy into our life.
Yeah, I what just came up for me when you were talking about that was, if you were a woman, as you just described, say you're in a high power job and that type of masculine energy works for you, then would actually be quite a vulnerable space to go into your feminine energy in the relationship, because you're so used to being sort of the boss, really. And and in order for it to work, for you to play that role, and like you're saying, is that it doesn't have to be like the 1950s role. It can be redefined, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, and how to get there. And
it's a really exciting time to be alive as women, but I think women are just starting to recognize and realize, like, wait a second, there's more to this. There's more to this, and what I've been doing up until now has not been working. So what does that really look like?
Right. So again, coming back to the masculine energy and successful business women in particular, if someone is a heterosexual female, so how does being in that masculine energy affect their relationship or future relationships? I know you just touched on it a little bit, but can we go a little bit deeper and talk about some examples of how that might cause some breakdowns in relationship?
Absolutely. And I can speak from my own experience and from women that I've supported on this journey as well. But a lot of times it really comes off as trying to be in control of the relationship, which means being very much in our head. So a lot of times it's, trying to latch onto a relationship timeline and trying to move the relationship down the timeline, or trying to plan out what the next, stage of the timeline is going to be, and then getting really anxious when it doesn't fit that way, right? And feeling out of control. It means, and it feels like, just feeling very guarded and protected around your heart. A lot of women, and myself included, had deep wounds that if we haven't actually healed those wounds, we subconsciously start to put up walls around our heart, which comes off as a very kind of more guarded, abrasive attitude when we show up in relationships with men. And then it's culminated on top of this whole women's empowerment idea of like, we don't need men. And it really comes off as like energetic spikes for men. And so they can't get close and they can't feel safe in your presence. And if men can't feel safe in your presence, then they're really not able to relax for themselves and be able to open up their heart. So it really is, like, in summary, it's really about when we come into relationships from too much in our masculine, it's more of just like staying in our head and not allowing ourselves to surrender into our heart space. And from that place, if we're only showing up in our head, then it keeps men in their heads like another man, right? Just like a buddy and a friend, it keeps them in their head, and they're never able to drop into their heart and be able to actually fall in love.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you for explaining it like that. Wow.
You're welcome.
So, I mean, I know, again, we've touched on it a little bit, but how do I guess, I mean, through, like you said, the wounds and series of like traumas and broken hearts, how do women, in your experience and opinion, get caught in this trap? And how can they recognize when they are there? Like, what are some early telltale signs so that perhaps they don't get too caught in the web?
Yeah. So the biggest one I hear is anxiety. If you listeners are feeling a lot of anxiety in relationships or in the idea of dating, or it feels just easier to be single than to have to go into that whole world of dating and relationships, that's a real big sign that, you know, there are some disconnections happening from your heart. Because when we really truly are aligned in our deepest self and in our knowing and in our love for ourselves, we can't help it. We're just like shining out of our heart. Like this just beam of light of love is just exuding out of our heart. I know I have to keep doing this. It's like, but that's how it is. That's how it is. And men pick up on it really easily. Like good, high quality men pick up on it. When we are whole and complete in ourselves and actually tapped into our feminine energy in that heart space, it literally is magnetic to men. And so if you're feeling caught up in your mind and overthinking and overanalyzing and getting in the drama of things and the anxiety of things, that is just a really sure telltale sign that you are up in your head and disconnected from your heart.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. I think that anxiety is really quite common. So we've got a lot of work to do.
The most beautiful thing though is it really doesn't have to be hard. Like, and that's kind of my message is like, we can relax into this. It doesn't have to be hard. It takes intention and it takes awareness. And a lot of times it's really hard to have awareness if you haven't been used to looking for this and being guided through it. But overall, like, it really doesn't have to be hard. And all the women that I support can testify to that. They didn't realize how easy it really can be to fall in love.
And can I just ask something that just came up for me again? It was sometimes when we want to relax into love, I feel like part of that is feeling safe in the relationship. So perhaps there's a difference between sort of knowing if it's you being in too much in your head or if this person's not quite the right fit for you. Because I've noticed in my experience, when I'm able to relax into love, it's when I feel safe around my partner. And when I say safe, I mean trust. Like I trust them that they're going to show up. I trust that they're not going to, you know, cheat and all these kinds of other behaviors. So it's not so much like physical safety, it's more like emotional safety, I'd say.
I love that. That is so powerful. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Did you have a specific question you wanted to ask around that?
I think I just, let me.
How do you feel safe?
Yeah. So, the question was, so how do you know, how do you know if it's you being in your head or if it's not feeling safe? Like if you're reading the relationship and you're in that place of not feeling safe.
Yeah. Really good. Really, really good. So the most beautiful distinction here that I love to talk about is when we think about falling in love, like it's scary. It's definitely scary. It's why they call it falling. It feels like you're like jumping off a cliff and hoping to not crash, right?
Mm-hmm,
and a lot of times, like I describe it as like ripping out your heart and saying, here you go, like, please don't break it. I'm giving this to you. Keep it safe. But really what I want to offer is that it's really not about ripping out your heart to give to somebody else to feel safe with, but really more creating that sense of wholeness in your heart within the safety of your own container of you. And then opening up and allowing a man to see it and to feel it. Mm-hmm. And so you're never actually giving it away. And it really gives you that sense of being able to recognize, okay, I'm going to be okay no matter what. I feel safe within myself. I feel connected to my heart within myself. And I am going to, with baby steps, as I build trust with this person, I am going to slowly show him my heart and allow him to see it and feel it. But I'm never going to give it away, right? And that really kind of takes back the feeling of control of like, I'm not throwing this carelessly around. I'm really taking care of it within myself. Because at the end of the day, in a true deep spiritual partnership with somebody else, you never want to be giving away your heart. It's more about giving your heart the opportunity to breathe and expand and evolve in the presence of somebody else as they're doing the same. And so I think that really can help to feel more grounded in that safety and security, because you don't ever have to fully entrust yourself with somebody else completely, but just as long as you have that trust within yourself, you know.
Right.
And that comes with first getting in touch with your heart.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like that analogy in the airplane where they say, fit your mask first before you fit your child's. If you're passed out, you can't help your your child. The same thing with your heart, I'm hearing. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I think that there's a lot of ways that humans can get broken in their life, and breakups is just one of them. So I feel like there's a lot of healing to be done around that, and like you say, getting reconnected with that heart space.
And actually, just as you say that, yeah, I know this topic is around, really supporting and healing women as they've gone through relationship breakups and getting back out there and like putting themselves forward. And I can definitely articulate and feel a very big like difference within my own self. I've had two loves in my life. And the first one, I very much did give my heart to him. And when it got broken, it was devastating, just devastating. And I literally lost myself for a really long time. And it was one of those things, like for 3 years afterwards, I was like thinking about him, pining over him. Like people would say his name and I'd fall apart,
Yeah.
or just someone else was named that and I'd fall apart. Truly like lost myself. And then there was another moment where I got my heart broken again. But I knew even deep down that like, no matter what, even though my heart hurt and I didn't want to let go, that I was okay. And because I had done the work on myself and I loved myself so much, and it was more about just self-soothing and allowing myself to truly just like nurture and feel the pain, but let it like be okay. And from that place, it was just such a more grounding experience. So yeah, I really, anyone that's going through a breakup right now or has just moved through it, I want to let you know, I feel you. And that pain is, some of the most deep pain I think we could ever experience, because it's so close to the heart. It is the heart. But no matter what, like nothing comes close to the love that we get to really share with our own self and our own soul. So coming back to that is so important.
It's interesting that you say that, because I had the exact same experience when my heart got ripped out of my chest. It was years, like you said, a song would trigger it. There'd be all these triggers, and like you said, the name of the person. And my ex has a quite common name, so it's like everywhere. And and when you really start that rebuilding, and so how long did it take you to sort of rebuild? And was it one thing that happened for you, or was it a series of small things? How did you? What was the main sort of catalyst for getting in touch with your heart after that and doing that work?
After the first breakup? Yeah, it was really after that time that I really decided I needed to go on a spiritual journey. And I was right after college. And so all my friends were jumping right into the career world, and I was like, I need to go travel. I need to go travel. Typical eat, pray, love, but this is before eat, pray, love. And I went to Thailand and I went to Southeast Asia and went backpacking for 6 months with my best friend. And it was one of those moments where I really was able to just give myself the spaciousness to explore myself in every way, and putting myself into lots of different experiences. And even I signed up for a 5-day silent meditation retreat in Thailand with Buddhist monks. And it was such an eye-opening experience and really a soul-moving experience, and had an out-of-body experience, and gave me such a deeper connection to myself and to our mind and ego and attachment and how it all fits together. And I think really after that time, I was able to come back home from that trip and just say, okay, I got a good grounded sense of who I am and my mission on this earth. But then opening back up definitely took practice and needed some coaches and some guidance on how to actually feel safe to do that.
Well, that's exactly what this summit's about, is that place of healing after the breakup, and then, like you say, opening back up and learning those skills. And I think, I mean, I had quite a similar story actually, traveling a lot and learning to, unfold and know yourself and almost like trust yourself again, because really, we're the only people that are with us 24/7 forever until we're not.
So I really hope you like yourself.
Yeah. So it'd be a hard place to be if you didn't like yourself, and perhaps that's something that needs to be addressed. So you mentioned in one of our previous conversations being strong on the inside and soft on the outside. What does it mean to be strong on the inside and soft on the outside? And if this is our goal, how can we achieve this?
Yes, yes. So I like to think about it kind of in terms of like 4 different character types. So there's 4 main character types that we can be as women. So for all of you listening, like think about like, which one do I fit into? So the first one is being soft on the inside and soft on the outside. And this is what I imagine as being like the ditzy doormat types of women, the ditzy Barbie dolls, the damsels in distress, right? Just very, very squishy. They don't have a backbone, the doormats. Then on the opposite extreme, we have strong on the inside and strong on the outside. And that's what I imagine as being like extreme feminists. And no offense to feminists, that's wonderful. However, it can be a very off-putting, harsh energy where we're strong, we know who we are, and we're not gonna take anyone's slack on the outside. Like we're just gonna do life and forget men, all that kind of stuff. And I don't think most women actually really want to be that. And then there's this middle ground where I think a lot of women are, where we tend to be strong on the outside, but soft on the inside, where we are telling the world, I'm fine, I can take care of myself, I don't need anyone, I've got this. But inside, we're still like, ugh, there's some insecurities, there's anxiety, there's a lot of things that haven't really been healed yet. And then there's the 4th type. And this is really what I help women to transition into being, is really inverting that strength so that they can be strong on the inside and soft on the outside. And that really looks like knowing yourself, loving yourself, having that deep inner feminine confidence that just radiates out of your being, where you don't even have to prove yourself and show and be. You get to just exude this energy of just, I am strong, I am light, I am love. And with that, I know that I can just relax and open up my presence to be very inviting.
Yeah, wow, that definitely sounds like a good place to be. I know that there's, you meet some people sometimes and they're just magnetizing. They're just so themselves and you're like, oh my gosh, who is this person? So yeah, that would certainly be a good place to be. I mean, I think, that confidence of, like you said, knowing who you are and being okay without somebody else's validation.
And I know like a lot of times this sounds really great, but it's like, okay, well, how do you actually do that? Like, how do I actually love myself? And it's a journey. It's a really fun, explorative journey. But it's definitely more than just bubble baths and getting your hair done. Like it's really about understanding what makes me me. What things do I really love? What lights up my heart? What things are my boundaries? What things am I okay with and not okay with? And do I feel comfortable being able to speak my truth? No matter what anyone else says, am I able to stand in what I need, even if people are going to leave, right? That's when you really step into that deep self-love and self-knowing of like, right? So after breakup, it's actually the most beautiful time to do this self-discovery work, because in a sense, you got a clean slate. Your heart has just been wiped out, right?
Yeah.
Massive like wipeout. Like you just went surfing and just like boom. And that's okay. That's completely okay. This is part of the journey of life. But it allows you to have this moment of like, hello, slap in the face, like time to get it together. Don't want to have that happen again. So what do I need to shift? What do I get to shift to step into this being, this love, this woman that really gets to embody both essences and stand in that inner strength.
And before, when you were talking about like when you are being in that strength, when you were speaking about letting somebody in finally, so when you get to the stage where you're ready to meet somebody else, you get to sort of like pull the layers back and slowly get to know them, and that's like the most exciting part. But I guess if your core is not there, is not already built, then you're, the relationship's shaky from the start. So it's about getting that solid foundation. Does that sound correct?
100%. Like, I really believe, like I almost I see this work as like 3 different channels that I support women with. It's like, first, relaxing into love with yourself, then learning how to relax into love, in a new relationship, in a new partnership. And then once you've been in a relationship for a really long time, like really getting to continue to relax into it for the long haul. because that's a whole nother phase too. But it all has to start with this deep foundation of knowing yourself, because otherwise you're right, you can get really lost and swept up into the current of the lust and the excitement and the newness, and then on the road you can lose yourself completely. So.
Yeah, and you said a word there that it really resonated with me in this context as well, as that those boundaries. So having the boundaries, like you said, with yourself, even if they leave, because it's like if you're not strong within yourself. First of all, someone who's strong within themselves is very attractive. Like you said, that's that magnetizing pull. But if you're not strong within yourself, then you are gonna like get taken by the tide.
Yeah, but I know like that can be, I literally just put up a post on this the other day because it's just like, it's such a powerful thing, like really standing in this knowing that I can be 100% myself no matter what, like even if there is nobody else around. And women have come to me with this too, like I'm scared to step into that woman because I'm afraid nobody's going to be there with me, like I'm going to be alone, I'm going to be on this island. And really what it is it's not that at all. It's actually this realization that like I am just releasing these people that have been taking up space, holding me into this pattern that I used to be. And so as I step forward, I may be opening up space and it may feel a little bit of a void, but it's filling in, it's getting to literally just be like magnetized in with new people that are going to lift me up into a higher vibration of myself. So it may be a temporary feeling of lack, but in the long run, it's really cleansing and purging and bringing in new energy to support that higher being.
And a more quality relationship, really.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So I love that you talked about the wipeout just then, because I was just about to ask, what's the best way to rebuild ourselves after that heartbreak?
I think the first thing is just really watching the mind and observing the thoughts and really just checking yourself if you start going into crazy self-beat up mode, because the mind it can be a tricky little bastard and it will start pulling in all the experiences from your past, from your family's past, from your friends' experiences, and feed you thoughts that are not your own. And telling you, see, I told you it wasn't going to work, or see, you totally messed that up, or see, you've never been good enough. And all of those things are not you. They are just this like culmination of experiences that starts to really like just crack our heart up and even harder in ways that really we don't deserve. So just really getting a second to just like really be aware of your thoughts. And I would say journal a lot. When we journal, it really gives us the chance to get those thoughts out of our head and put them on paper, and we can see them objectively for what they are. And a lot of times, I don't know about you, but when I journal and like some of those thoughts start coming out, I look at them and I'm like, what is this? This isn't even me. Where did this come from? And so you can really kind of detach yourself a little bit from this like all encompassing cloud of just darkness and heaviness that you may be feeling. And then I think the second thing is just really honoring yourself and giving yourself the space to grieve, because really like heartbreak and a loss of a relationship it feels like a death. It feels like there's a death of another person and that was in your life that is no longer in your life anymore. And so that needs to be grieved. And I think what happens a lot of times is that we don't want to go into the pain. And so we try and mask it with whatever that is, drugs, alcohol, movies, whatever. And we never give ourselves that time to heal. And so then it becomes actually a wound that just stays with us and is carried into our next relationships. Or a numbness. So I know it hurts and I know it sucks, but that's part of the beautiful process of getting to evolve and knowing that pain is growth. Pain is growth. Think about it as like being in a container and your container just got cracked. And if you just heal the container with some Band-Aids, right, you're still staying stuck in that container and you're not able to grow. But if you actually embrace that crack and let it open you up, you get to step forth literally out of a shell and grow into a new shell. And then it's just about like that little hermit crab, like building that stronger shell. I'm going to go with, I used to be a biologist, so I'm going to go with not the typical hermit crab, but the ones that have the inner skeletons. Building that skeleton on the inside and letting it still be gushy and soft on the outside.
It's interesting, even when you were saying that, like, as much as I mean, I've been there, I've done this journey, so I 100% know what you're talking about. the thought of it is quite scary though. So I guess my question is, how, if someone is in a place of like, oh my gosh, she just said this thing where I have to step out of the shell and that's terrifying. How can we sort of like you said before, baby step that so that it's not so overwhelming? Because I know that, like you mentioned, breakups can be like a death. And it's, you know, I know that people stop eating, people just sleep all the time, they can't go to work, they can't participate in society, some people don't shower, you know, there's all kinds of things that happen. People don't eat, like it just affects every fiber of your being, and it's like you're in shock almost. So you know, I mean, I guess I'm going a step further before, because we don't want that shell to break, right? Sometimes, I mean, often, not all the time obviously, because every situation is different, but that shell is cracked without us wanting it to be there. So so I guess if we think about it like, you know, there's like a little baby dinosaur in there. How do we nurse that baby dinosaur? And like you said, start that grieving process, because inevitably it's going to happen. So one way or another.
Such a beautiful question. A really deep question too. Yeah. I think there's a couple things. I think a lot of times the reason we don't want to go into that pain is because that pain is fed by a lot of fears. And so it's easier to just like avoid the fears and just keep them down than to actually embrace them. Because when we embrace fear, that's where it can be very all consuming. So if you can really get to the place of recognizing and surrendering to being in awareness of the fear, that's where you can have so much openness and realizations come through, and deep epiphanies. And obviously, yeah, it can be scary. And I think it's really important in this time, if you don't feel secure to do that on your own, to ask for help and to get support, either from a coach or a friend or a parent. But really, I think it is leaning into the fear so that you can really see it for what it is. Because at the end of the day, that fear is what's going to be driving everything for your relationships moving forward. And so I think it's once again goes back to the self-talk. If I can really surrender to this moment as an opportunity, not for just grieving, but for growth. I feel this pain, I feel this sadness, I know this is temporary. I'm going to surrender into the feelings and let myself feel everything that comes up as it comes up, knowing that I am cleansing and I am purging every time I do this, and I'm not shoving it down, letting that be okay. Even if it means I have to turn my phone off for a week and not go to work, like I'm going to give myself this container to cocoon and heal and process through. And then when I do get to the place where I've cried everything I can cry, asking myself, what is the deeper fear underneath here? Where is this pain really stemming from? Is it the fear of I'm going to be alone forever? Is it the fear of I'm not good enough? Is it the fear of there's no ever going to be another good man that will love me the way he loved me? Like, what is underneath all of that? And really coming to terms with that.
Mm-hmm.
When we come to terms with that, then we've got a chance at like stabbing the monster and stepping forward to rebuild our shell.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds like a lot of deep work. It's a process for sure.
It definitely is, and I'm sending so much love to anyone that's going through this right now, and I believe and honor you. And I think first things first, just let yourself cry. Just let yourself cry. Let yourself have the spaciousness to grieve, even if that means having to disconnect for a little while. That's okay. And then ask for support. Ask for support and ask for help.
That's a big one.
There are so many amazing people that are here with open arms to love you and hold that safe container for you to kind of have that shell until you feel safe and strong enough within yourself to step back out on your own.
I know we talked about it in a previous conversation. We talked about having a vision on what you want to become. I know we're sort of skipping forward in the from the like acute, really grieving and pain stage to maybe pushing through past that, and once you've done a little bit of work, having a vision of what we want to become, and what does it mean to have that vision?
Yeah, it's interesting because this is always a question I ask for women that come to me, asking them, who is the woman that you really want to become? And a lot of times they can't articulate it. It's like, oh, well, I just want to be confident, and I want to, just like have a great relationship with a partner that, is sexy and that loves me and things like that. But that's very much from our head. When we really connect into that vision, that's where we really start to kind of set the coordinates of the GPS of where our life is going. Because I think a lot of women get stuck in this cycle of pattern, that they've just been in this pattern. They can keep going on this pattern because it's all they know and it's all they've ever experienced. And so in a sense, they're driving around in circles. And so when we can connect into this vision of who we really get to step into being, when we get to reset the slate and redefine how we want to show up in the world, it gives us a direction to start moving toward. And when we can start moving towards something, we feel more in control. And we actually get a lot of peace and groundedness that come from that. It's like, okay, I got a plan, I got my steps in my plan, now I can go and do it. But in the uncertainty of I have no idea where my life is going, I am just so upside down and I'm just stuck in this rut, that we just feel very out of control. And I think that's a big part of breakups and falling out of love with a relationship, is just you had this goal and this plan and this direction for so long, and that gave you a lot of sense of security. But when that's been just uprooted, you have no plan anymore, and that no plan feels very out of control. That's where a lot of that feeling comes up.
Great, thank you. I love that as well, that we're really bringing it back to our own vision, not somebody else's vision. We're not going to heal and then go all in on something else straight away. We're going to, like you said, keep the boundaries and be sure on who we are before we start something with somebody else.
Control is such a such a big one. I feel like feeling in control. And relationships are such a huge area where we can feel very out of control. And so we tend to want to lean in and try and grab on and make people be a certain way, or freak out if they respond in a way that we're not used to. And at the end of the day, relationships are one of the most beautiful areas for us to really explore the area of uncertainty, because it's always uncertain. We never really can predict what anyone's going to do. And so the only area of control we can ever have is within ourselves. But I think women forget that, and forget that they get to be in control of their life and the way their life unfolds, even if it doesn't feel that way sometimes in the moment.
I think when we talk about relationships, it's easy, of course, with say a colleague or a family member, because even with a family member, you may love them, but being in love is very different, because it's so hard to explain when you're in it. So you're just oh my gosh, it's the navigation's just all over the shop, and sometimes you do let your boundaries slide. So I think it's
so coming back to that vision is really important, and regrounding, especially if a man's a really strong presence and they start kind of wanting you to be a certain way and fitting into their life to stay in that relationship. It can be really easy to lose those boundaries. So coming back home to that vision of no, this is the type of relationship I'm going toward. This is the type of man I'm going to be attracting, and you get to decide if you want to fit into my vision versus me trying to fit into what you need.
Or discussing and coming up with a vision together. That's always a really powerful place too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And coming back to the start of coming back to the title of this interview, you mentioned redefining what it means to be a woman in today's modern world. And I know that everything we've said sort of has really encompassed this, but if we sum it up, how could we sort of articulate redefining your role in today's modern world?
Yeah, I think it really comes into this place of soul evolution and growth. I think, the 1950s housewife, they really were able to fit into that gender role of femininity and keeping a nurturing house and being that loving, nurturing, kind woman to come home to, and to have that man relax into his presence. But then we evolved into this next stage of being where we, like I said, swung completely the opposite direction and have really embodied more of that masculine side and that being the man. And I think now it's the next forward swing up. It's a spiral, really, not even a swing. It's a spiraling up and up and up that we get to really embody now in the women of today's generation, where we get to take the beauty of the past, take the beauty of the present, and really combine that into something even more powerful and beautiful, where we get to step into having the feminine energy from strength, having the masculine energy as a container and more of a grounding presence, and really step into this all radiant goddess being that we get to show up as, both for men in our world and also just for everyone in our world. Because there's something really beautiful when you can really align into both synchronicities of both energies harmoniously. We become even more elevated. Like, we become divine in that moment. We're not one thing, we're not the other thing. We are both intertwined, and we become this elevated divine presence. And as we become this elevated divine presence, that's when magic really starts happening. That's when opportunities just start flowing into your existence and you can't stop it. That's when men are just coming to you out of the woodworks everywhere, wanting to be with you, and you get to pick all of the different men that you get to choose from. That's where just like infinite knowledge and wisdom pours through you and out, so that you can do the greatest work that you want to do in this world. And it is so powerful. And I am just like so honored to support women in this journey of really coming home into themselves with both of those blended energies.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. Thank you. I really love the language you use to describe that, because it's really powerful.
I've honestly never said anything like that before. That just came right through me. That's that infinite wisdom that's just pouring right through me. It is so powerful, and I love it. I love it.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm really sure that, I mean, I know I certainly have, but that a lot of people have experienced that magnetism from certain people who are in that power, you know. And I know there's a lot of famous people as well. Like, I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, but when you just see people's presence, you know, they're just in their power. And like you say, like, part of it is masculine, but part of it's feminine as well. It's not having, you know, it's having that balance. Mm-hmm. And I have a last question that I'm asking all of our guest speakers. And again, we probably really covered this, but if someone's like very acute and they've just come out of a relationship, what's your best piece of advice for someone who's just like, I broke up with my partner yesterday?
I'd say come back home to self. Just come back home to yourself. And I mean that in every way of whatever that feels right to you. There's no right answer of how you come back home to self. But really give yourself that space to recenter.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can be very, very easy to get lost in those moments.
Yeah, it sure can. Yeah, when you're in shock. Well, thank you so much for being here today with me. I appreciate it. I've loved having a chat with you.
It's been incredible. Absolutely.
And also, I just want to mention, I know you have a free gift you're offering the audience today. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously this is powerful, powerful work, and not something you can just take from listening to an episode and they're like, okay, I'm fixed, I'm cured. So for any women that are feeling called and drawn to explore this deeper, I'm opening up my schedule for a free 30-minute love breakthrough session with me, where you and I can really get a chance to get to know each other on a Zoom call just like this, and be able to connect deeper on what you may be struggling with, and what blocks you may be feeling or patterns you're stuck in. And we can really talk through what that looks like to break you through that pattern and step into that being that you really want to be.
Awesome. Wow, that's super generous. Thank you so much. So I will leave a link to get in touch with Teal on this page somewhere, so keep an eye out. And thank you again for being here. It's been really amazing to chat to you.
You're welcome, Talia. Thank you so much for the opportunity.